There are moments, quiet, crystalline moments, when you feel the edges of reality ripple just slightly, like the surface of a still lake disturbed by something unseen. Perhaps it's a sudden insight, or a strange coincidence that feels far too precise to be random. Maybe it's the echo of a long-forgotten memory that rises unbidden, only to perfectly answer a question you didn't know you were asking. In those slivers of clarity, when the veil feels thin, you glimpse a truth so large and intimate that it makes the world tilt just slightly. That truth is this: every thought you have is not merely a reaction to your world, it is an architect of it. We are taught, in whispers and textbooks and careful conditioning, that thoughts are private things, locked inside the skull like birds in a cage, that the world out there, solid, empirical, indifferent, is real, and the chatter of our minds is just an ephemeral soundtrack riding atop it. But what if that's backwards? What if your thoughts are not passengers, but pilots? What if every flicker of belief, every silent internal narrative, every image you conjure behind your eyes, is a brushstroke painting the world you walk through? Imagine a prism. White light enters, and it explodes into color. Not because the world changed, but because the lens through which you viewed it rearranged the spectrum. Thought is like that. Not inert, not benign, but refractive. It bends what you experience and subtly, insistently, reshapes the field you move within. And unlike the prism, which passively breaks light according to physical laws, your mind chooses the frequencies it emphasizes. Fear filters reality one way, love another. Doubt casts long shadows. Clarity floods the same scene with light. There is an ancient pulse beneath the world's surface, a rhythm older than time that hums behind matter, guiding the dance of atoms and galaxies alike. This isn't poetry, it's physics, metaphysics, and mysticism braided into one. Your thoughts, like tuning forks, either harmonize with that rhythm or disrupt it. And when they harmonize, when they're coherent, aligned, intentional, reality bends like a willow toward your inner world. Not in an instant, not with fireworks, but like ink soaking slowly into parchment. Over time, reality becomes stained with the color of your mind. But to say that thought creates reality is not a call to wishful thinking. This is not about demanding the universe rearrange itself around your momentary desires. Rather, it is about understanding that you are already, in every breath, participating in creation, whether you mean to or not. Your attention is the currency of reality, and every place you spend it grows more vivid. Feed a fear, and it roots itself deeper. Nurture a vision, and it begins to bloom. The ancients knew this. In forms both veiled and explicit, the Hermetics taught that the all is mind, that the universe itself is mental in nature. In the Vedas, thought precedes manifestation, as Brahman dreams the world into being. Even in the book of Genesis, creation begins with a word, spoken thought, vibrating over the void. And modern science, poking its instruments into the quantum world, has begun to whisper uneasy confirmations. The observer affects the observed. Consciousness and cosmos are tangled in a dance we are only beginning to see. To explore this idea, to truly examine what it means that every thought you have is creating a new reality, is to dive into the deepest questions of being. It is to strip away the illusion that you are merely a passenger in your life, buffeted by fate or circumstance, and to reclaim the hidden authorship you've always possessed. It is to realize that reality is not fixed, but fluent, shaped by language, belief, attention, and expectation. But it is also to take profound responsibility, for if your mind sculpts the world, then your fears, your projections, your inherited scripts, they're not just internal noise. They are construction crews. They lay the roads you walk, brick by invisible brick. And so, this journey is not just about manifesting dreams or aligning with the universe. It is about learning to tend the garden of thought as if it were sacred, because it is. In the chapters to come, we will delve deeper, not just into ideas, but into the symbolic architecture of how thought and reality weave together. We will look at the illusions we mistake for truth, and the truths that sit quietly behind those illusions. We'll unearth ancient wisdom and stitch it into the seams of modern insight. And perhaps most importantly, we will explore what all of this means for you, in the now, how this cosmic principle pulses through the most mundane details of your daily life. But first, we begin with the core, the foundation stones of this living structure, the principles and forces at play beneath the surface of thought itself. Because to understand the power you wield, you must first see the mechanics of the spell you're always casting, consciously or not. To truly grasp how every thought shapes the world around you, you must first peel back the fabric of what you believe reality is. For many, the world is a solid, external structure, objective, measurable, and indifferent to our inner states. It feels separate, like a stage upon which the mind performs, but never rewrites the script. Yet this perception is not reality. It is a collective agreement, a shared dream mistaken for truth. At the heart of this exploration lies a truth both liberating and terrifying. Reality is participatory. It does not stand alone. It leans toward consciousness, draws meaning from awareness, and bends, however subtly, toward the intent behind the gaze. Thought is not passive. It is formative. The mind is not merely an observer. It is a collaborator in the creation of the very world it experiences. This interplay of thought and reality is not linear. It does not function like a machine, where every input yields a fixed output. It is more like weather, patterns arising from countless subtle pressures, invisible flows, and hidden beliefs. Your conscious thoughts may whisper one thing, but your deeper convictions, the ones you inherited, the ones you absorbed without knowing, are the storm systems steering the climate of your life. Here, we must speak of resonance. Every thought carries a frequency, a vibrational signature that interacts with the unseen architecture of the world. When you dwell in despair, your thoughts generate dissonant chords, feeding patterns of stagnation, illness, isolation. When you shift into compassion or gratitude, your internal tuning changes, and suddenly the world reflects back a new harmony. It isn't always immediate, and it rarely obeys egoic demands, but it is consistent, like the way water always shapes itself around the vessel it fills. This is not to say the world is a blank slate, nor that all suffering is the fault of faulty thoughts. The cosmos is layered, and some currents run deep and collective. But even then, your perception, your response, your chosen perspective determines the shape that current takes in your personal field. You cannot always choose the storm, but you can choose whether to be the lightning rod or the mountain. Another theme central to this concept is attention. Where your attention goes, energy flows. It's more than a slogan. It's a metaphysical law. Attention is the mechanism by which thoughts are fed, kept alive, and sent rippling outward. A fleeting worry, left unexamined, grows into anxiety. A moment of awe, fully felt, can stretch time and rewire your sense of the possible. Your focus is not just internal, it's the steering wheel of your experience. And then there is belief, the invisible scaffolding upon which reality is draped. Belief systems are more than psychological comforts. They are lenses, architectures, coding systems. They determine what is possible, what is noticed, what is filtered out. A child raised in a world that believes in miracles may witness them. One raised in a world of concrete rules and empirical dogma may never even recognize the miraculous when it arrives. The mind is not simply a computer processing input from an external world. It is a projector, beaming interpretations, expectations, and stories onto the canvas of experience. Two people can walk the same path and live entirely different realities, not because the world has changed, but because their thoughts, layered with meaning, memory, emotion, have carved unique dimensions into their perception. We also must speak of coherence. Thought becomes reality most powerfully when it is aligned, when the conscious, subconscious, emotional, and energetic systems of a person are harmonized. Scattered thoughts are like pebbles thrown into a lake. Ripples, yes, but quickly lost. Coherent thoughts, like a laser, cut through the noise of probability and bring form to formlessness. This is why rituals, affirmations, visualization, prayer, all ancient technologies of mind, can be potent. When wielded with clarity, they are blueprints whispered into the matrix. But the deepest theme beneath all of this is unity, the illusion of separation between self and other, thought and world, spirit and matter, is the root of most distortion. In truth, there is no inner or outer, only degrees of awareness. The boundary between thought and form is not a wall, but a membrane. What happens in here reverberates out there because there is no out there. There is only a field of consciousness, folding in on itself to create the appearance of objects, time, cause, and self. To recognize this is to step out of the victim mindset, to reclaim the understanding that you are not merely in the universe, but of it, woven into its very essence. Your thoughts are not radio signals bouncing off an indifferent sky. They are the sky. They are the signals, the receivers, the intent, and the result, all at once. So what does it mean that every thought you have creates a new reality? It means you are never merely thinking. You are casting spells, programming matrices, seeding outcomes. It means that your internal landscape is not hidden. It is echoed. It means that each moment of doubt or clarity, judgment or forgiveness, is an offering laid upon the altar of creation. There is a tale told in hushed tones in certain ancient traditions. It speaks of a dreamer, not a man or a woman, but a primordial awareness, vast and eternal. This dreamer had no face, no name, and no limits. It slept in silence, in the darkness before the stars, and in its slumber, it began to think. Not thoughts as we know them, but waves, pure intention, undivided, unfettered by language or form. With every thought, a ripple moved across the nothingness, and those ripples became worlds. Suns burst into light, galaxies coiled like spirals in a divine breath, and time itself began to tick in response to the dreamer's silent contemplations. The story tells us that all of creation is simply the echo of this great dreamer's mind. And here's the twist. You are a thought within that dream, but you are also the dreamer dreaming. You are both the idea and the ideator, the imagined and the imagining. In myth, this paradox often takes symbolic form. Consider the story of the mirror god, an entity that wished to understand itself but had nothing to reflect its own image. So it shattered itself into countless fragments, each one containing a shard of the original knowing. Those shards became souls, and each soul wandered the cosmos, forgetting what it was, hoping one day to remember. Every thought they had was a whisper, a clue, a breadcrumb on the trail back to the whole. What this myth reveals, metaphorically, is that thought is not a tool, but a breadcrumb trail toward identity. Every thought you have either leads you closer to the center or farther away. It is not merely that thoughts shape events, it's that thoughts shape the self, and the self is the gatekeeper of all experience. When you think a fearful thought, you cloak yourself in armor that distances you from the original light. When you think a generous thought, you polish the mirror. Reality responds not because it is watching, but because it is you, reflected and refracted through that inner mirror. Let's walk through another ancient metaphor, the garden. In esoteric traditions, the soul is said to be a garden, and the mind is the sower. Thoughts are seeds, and the emotions you attach to them are the water and sunlight. Left unexamined, weeds grow, beliefs planted by culture, trauma, or ancestral memory. But when you become a conscious gardener, every thought becomes an act of cultivation. You may not see the fruit right away, but the roots take hold beneath the soil of your daily experience, eventually blossoming into the events, people, and patterns that surround you. This garden metaphor is not merely poetic, it's neurologically and energetically real. Studies in neuroplasticity show that the brain rewires itself based on consistent thought patterns. Emotionally charged thoughts deepen grooves in the mind. Spiritually, many traditions hold that consistent thought forms generate morphic fields, energetic blueprints that influence probability and attract resonant frequencies. Symbolically and literally, the garden you tend inside is the world you walk through outside. Now, consider the story of the masked magician. In many mystic teachings, especially Gnostic and Hermetic lines, the human being is portrayed as a divine being who has forgotten their origin, wearing a mask they think is their face. Every thought you have either reinforces the mask or begins to peel it away. Thoughts like, "I'm not good enough," "I'll never succeed," or "I have to struggle," etch the mask more deeply into place. But thoughts like, "I am a spark of the infinite," "I am responsible for my vibration," or even, "What if reality is more malleable than I think?" loosen the glue. The masked magician lives in each of us, waiting to remember the spellbook buried beneath the noise. Thought, in this model, becomes a kind of spellcasting, language that interfaces with the source code of the matrix. Speak in fear, and the matrix obeys with limits. Speak in wonder, and it bends in curiosity. You are always speaking, even in silence, because thought never sleeps. Every silent assumption, every habitual inner dialogue, is writing scripts into your reality. Let us not forget the story of the two wolves, told often but rarely understood in its deepest dimension. A child asks an elder, "Which wolf wins, the one of darkness or the one of light?" The elder replies, "The one you feed." But what is feeding truly? Feeding is not just attention, it is identification. When you believe your thought, when you become entangled in its story, you breathe life into that wolf. Thought creates reality, not only because of its frequency, but because of your alignment with it. The wolf you believe you are is the one that runs your forest. In each of these stories, the same truth unfolds in different forms. Thought is a living force. It is not inert, and it is not contained. It is a bridge between the seen and the unseen, a paintbrush that moves not only across the canvas of your mind, but across the canvas of existence. You are a creator, not metaphorically, but fundamentally. Every thought you harbor, every belief you rehearse, is a thread in the loom of reality. You may not control the pattern of the entire tapestry, but the section around you, the colors, the shapes, the rhythm, is deeply tied to your inner narrative. To walk this path consciously is to become a weaver of reality, not in arrogance, but in awe, not with rigid control, but with reverent awareness. It is to realize that the universe does not speak in words, it speaks in symbols, metaphors, energies. And so must we, if we wish to co-create with it. The realm of ideas is intoxicating. It is easy, even natural, to become enraptured by the grandeur of cosmic metaphors and symbolic narratives. But eventually, the wind must return to the ground, and the soul must return to the body. And so must this truth, that every thought creates reality, find its way into the muscles of daily life. Otherwise, it remains an echo in a distant chamber, beautiful but powerless. Let us begin where most realities unfold, in the morning. The moment you awaken, you are offered a sacred portal, subtle, liminal, and potent. The seconds before your mind fully remembers who you are, what your problems are, where your phone is. Those moments are the closest thing to pure potentiality. It is the fertile void between worlds. Most people unconsciously summon yesterday's thoughts like ghosts, and the ghosts obligingly return. But what if, instead, you planted a different seed? What if, in those first few breaths, you gently whispered to yourself, "Today is a day of alignment. Today, I am a conscious creator." That single thought, seemingly small, begins to shift the current. It may not alter the whole river immediately, but it begins the redirection. Throughout your day, the world will speak to you in the language of reflection. You will notice how the thoughts you chose earlier begin to shape your responses, your interactions, even the kinds of people who cross your path. Your nervous system may want to return to old loops, stress, judgment, scarcity, but when you pause just long enough to question the thought, you reclaim authorship. That is the practice, noticing the reflex, recognizing the story, and replacing it with one that aligns with the reality you wish to inhabit. For example, when someone cuts you off in traffic, you might feel the familiar rise of irritation, the automatic thought, "People are so inconsiderate." But underneath, if you listen closely, is a deeper thought, "I'm not respected." That thought doesn't just color your mood, it builds your world. When you believe it, you begin to see it everywhere. But what if you let it pass without gripping it? What if you replaced it with, "I am centered, I am safe. Others' actions do not define my state. It may feel artificial at first, like a costume too big, but repetition is not performance. It is reprogramming. Over time, the new thought becomes the new default, and with it, your reality responds. In relationships, the law of thought becomes a mirror house. Every expectation, every assumption becomes a lens through which you see others, and through which they feel seen. If you think, they'll never understand me, your words, your body language, your energy will subtly affirm that belief, and the other person will often unconsciously fulfill it. But if you dare to think, we are capable of deep understanding, even if history suggests otherwise, you activate a different potential. You may still need to speak, to clarify, to stumble, but the foundation shifts. Reality begins to bend toward the more coherent vision. Even in health, the pattern holds. Cells respond not only to biochemistry, but to emotional frequency. The body, like the world, listens to the tone of your inner monologue. Chronic thoughts of unworthiness, fear, or resentment send signals that tighten muscles, restrict breath, and imbalance hormones. This is not mystical thinking, it is psychoneuroimmunology. Your body eavesdrops on your thoughts, and each system adjusts accordingly. When you begin to think, even gently, I am healing, my body knows what to do, or I am in harmony with life, you are not lying to yourself, you are reorienting the compass. This law also extends into how you set goals or pursue purpose. If you believe that success is scarce, hard-won, or reserved for the lucky, your thoughts will plant seeds of delay and difficulty. But if you shift your thinking, again, not with blind fantasy, but with quiet conviction, you will notice synchronicities arise, not because the world has changed, but because your inner climate allows for their recognition. You begin to notice opportunities where before there was only noise. The challenge for most is consistency. The mind is not a still pond. It is a river, constantly moved by external winds and internal tides. To become a conscious thinker is not to control every ripple. It is to notice the flow and gently, persistently steer. This takes discipline, not in the rigid sense, but in the sacred sense. Like tending a fire, like growing a tree. You do not expect instant shade, but you show up every day with water and sunlight. Thought, when nurtured this way, becomes a garden that blooms across dimensions. Technology complicates this landscape. We are surrounded by screens, notifications, and endless stimuli, all vying for our attention, all planting seeds of thought into our soil. It is easy to forget that most of your thoughts aren't even your own. They are echoes of algorithms, headlines, inherited wounds, and collective anxieties. To reclaim your thought space is a radical act. It means filtering what you consume. It means guarding your morning like a sanctuary. It means creating moments of stillness where the world cannot intrude, so you can hear your true thoughts rise. And yet, this is not a call to perfection. You will still think thoughts of fear. You will still spiral at times, forget your power, or repeat the old scripts. That is human. The alchemy lies not in avoiding those thoughts, but in responding to them with awareness. Every time you interrupt an unconscious loop with a conscious breath, you are forging a new reality. Every time you meet an unworthy thought with loving inquiry, you loosen its grip. Eventually, the line between practice and identity begins to blur. You are no longer merely someone who tries to think differently. You are different. Your thoughts become prayers, not because they're solemn, but because they're aligned. Your imagination becomes sacred ground. Your silence becomes rich with potential. And the world, your relationships, your body, your path, begins to echo back the vibration you've chosen to sustain. This is the integration. Not lofty, not abstract, but daily. Each moment, each thought, a thread in the fabric. You are weaving, whether you know it or not. The only question is, what pattern are you choosing? And so, we arrive at the precipice, not of an ending, but of a profound return. A return to something you've always known, but perhaps dared not name aloud, that you are not merely moving through reality, but that reality is moving through you. That your thoughts are not echoes, they are incantations. That every whisper of mind, every flicker of imagination, Every unspoken assumption is a current in the river of becoming. You are not just experiencing the world, you are authoring it. To realize this is to awaken from a deep hypnosis, not the kind induced by swinging pendulums or murmured commands, but the kind woven by repetition, culture, and inherited fear. We are told to mistrust our inner world. That imagination is for children, that vision is vague, that reality is solid and fixed. But you know somewhere in the quiet that this is a half-truth, that behind the noise and distraction is a stillness where creation begins. And in that stillness, your thoughts are not idle, they are instruments. The truth of thought creation is not a promise of instant miracles or effortless perfection. It is not a shiny tool to manifest cars or cash or influence. It is a sacred remembrance of alignment. Alignment with self, with source, with the architecture of all that is. Every thought aligned with love, clarity, courage, or integrity becomes a seed not only of external change, but of internal homecoming. You do not think your way into a different life. You live your way into a different thought, and from there, reality responds. This realization is also a call to gentleness, to forgive yourself for the realities you've unknowingly built in fear, to have compassion for the thoughts that were never truly yours, but woven from survival, protection, ancestral echoes. You are not broken because you thought small, or dark, or heavy things. You are powerful because now you know. And knowing is the pivot point. It is where the alchemist first lifts the veil and sees that the lead was never dead matter. It was always potential gold. There will be days when your thoughts feel scattered, your will uncertain, your clarity lost in fog. These are not failures. They are invitations. Invitations to pause, to listen, to ask, what world am I feeding with this thought? You may not always change it in an instant, but even the awareness is a shift in trajectory. A 1-degree turn today becomes a new continent tomorrow. Let this be your inner practice, not just in meditation or moments of peace, but in the mundane, in traffic, in heartbreak, in doubt, in joy. Listen to your mind not as a judge, but as a mirror. What do your thoughts say about what you believe is possible, about who you believe yourself to be? Then ask gently, is this thought a doorway or a wall? Is it aligning me with fear or with truth? And from there, choose again. And as you begin to live this way, not perfectly, but consciously, something subtle shifts in the atmosphere of your life. Synchronicities arrive like messengers. Conversations bend toward meaning. Obstacles soften, not because you've hacked reality, but because you've harmonized with it. You've stepped out of reaction and into resonance. You've stopped building from memory and begun building from presence. The world around you may not change overnight, but your relationship with it will. And that change is foundational. It is the difference between being a leaf on the wind or the one who learns to ride the wind with grace, between being an echo and being a voice. This is the awakening behind all awakenings, not a mystical experience on a mountaintop, but a return to your own mind as sacred ground. Every thought, a spell, every word, a bridge, every moment, an open field. So let your thoughts become allies. Let them be the tenders of your garden, the architects of your days, the midwives of your becoming. And if you ever feel lost, remember this: the power was never out there. It has always lived in the silent, electric forge behind your eyes, in the space where thought becomes frequency and frequency becomes form. You are not just living a life, you are dreaming a universe into being. And now that you know, what will you dream next?